Hey guys, I've got some crazy news this week on Gossip Without Prejudice. Mike Rafi joins us on the podcast. Mike is a fantastic Georgia personal injury lawyer. Actually, his team practices in several jurisdictions. He's huge on TikTok, Instagram, educating the people about all things personal injury, liability, and more importantly, he's just a really fucking cool guy that I got to sit down and talk to for, in my opinion, way longer than I deserved. Mike and his team have been nothing but lovely. And we had a really interesting conversation. We get into things about a little bit about politics, about our perspective as creators, new and old, our ethics as professionals in the legal industry. And I'm so excited to share this with you. Before we get into the actual video, I also just wanted to add, thank you. Me and my entire team could not have been here without everyone blowing us up on social media. We're still a very small channel, but we've achieved an enormous amount of success very quickly. And Mike may not have taken us seriously if it wasn't for all of your support. And I really want to congratulate and thank you for your trust, for your time, and for your attention. We here at Gossip Without Prejudice will do everything in our power to ensure that our content remains informative, entertaining, hopeful, whatever adjective you want to use. We're here for you, our audience. So thank you. Thank you to Mike for sitting down with us from his fine home in Georgia. Thank you to our audience, and thank you to my team, Sam, Michelle, Lindsay, our newest podcast researcher, Megan. You guys are fucking incredible. Thank you, Mike. Here's the show. Mike, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today. I've been a huge personal follower of yours for like a very long time. You got a lot of my team into the legal space on social media too. You should know that. And we have our operations team is listening to this feed right now, and this was like their highlight of this week was that you agreed to come in. So I just wanted to say thanks so much.
It's a tough week, people. This is a holiday weekend. I mean, I'm not even close. What are y'all doing? I know you can't respond, but come on.
Well, what's fantastic is your content is uniquely, and I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself here shortly, but your content is uniquely accessible for people of all ages and stripes to better understand how our system really deals with fault, responsibility, negligence, accidents, misfortune. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us how you got into this arena and why you love kicking insurance companies' asses.
I got into this like any married man gets into anything. My wife told me, you can't do this. So I said, hell, I can't. So for some background, some people know this. We made some videos about it. I was actually just looking at a video about Fox News that we did a long time ago. And before I became a lawyer, I worked for TV stations. So I worked for some local stations. I worked for WSB here is our major station in Atlanta. They're owned by Cox Broadcasting. At the time, they had like 17 stations across the country. And I worked in D.C., though, and I did local news in D.C. So if you were in El Paso, Texas, you might think I was your local reporter talking about D.C. stuff. Or if you were in, San Diego, you might think I was your local reporter. Only time I ever got recognized, I was in Disney in Orlando because we had a station down there. So I did that and then worked for a bunch of different TV stations. And the problem with TV stations, in my view, is you move after every 2 years. That's the goal. You keep climbing up and up. And I started at the largest cable news station in the world. Say what you want politically, blah, 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 blah. That's where I worked. It was a great job. And at the time, the moniker on my sleeve, on my T-shirt when I worked there was Fair and Balanced. That's secretly I have that tattooed on my arm. I'm just kidding. But that was the moniker back then. And that was what Fox News strove for back in that day. So I say that because when my wife says to me, you can't do these videos, I was like, you bet I can. I mean, I kind of have a leg up here. And that's kind of how it started, really. It was purely you can't do this. And if you tell me I can't do anything, that's my existence in life. That's literally why I'm here.
And I looked back at some of your very old content. I've been following you for like you sort of came onto the social scene like properly about 2 years ago, if I'm more or less correct, right?
Before that it was a laptop with books and shoeboxes stacked up. Not joking. And this mic that I'm not using, that's currently a relic.
Well, and your status as a content creator is very unique in the law. It's unique in society, period, but it's particularly unique in the law. And I'd love to know how has that journey been for you? Because I know you were a relatively small time creator, and then from my perspective as a viewer, you kind of just like you were nowhere and then you were everywhere, as far as I could tell. And that must have been that must have been one hell of a journey. So tell me what that was like and how that really has impacted your team.
When my wife is sitting in bed telling me you can't do this, what she's looking at is a real estate agent's TikTok who she was following, and I could hear her voice now in my head. But every night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in bed, I'd hear this person, then I hear the swipe, and I started looking over. Right, I'm doing the look over the shoulder. Who's that? What's she talking about today? And I eventually got connected with the people that were making her videos at the time. I asked her. She said, "No, I'm not telling you." Good move, by the way. And then I saw someone else's video that looked exactly the same, and I was like, I know this guy. I'm going to call him. And he said, here's who it is, and introduced me. And I said to them, I'm a lawyer. I'm not doing real estate stuff. Like, I have nothing to do with what you all do. I just want to talk. So I started making videos, and I think I started, if my timing is right, I think I started like actually trying to really film daily content, because I learned a long time ago, weekly content doesn't work. It's got to be, in my mind, it's got to be daily. That whole idea of if you do too much content, people will get sick of you. I am so far past that. And if somebody watching this is like, I don't want to post too much. I don't want to. No, you can never post too much. That's what I've learned. So I started making the videos, and like 9 months go by, and a good day back then is like 2,000 people, 3,000 people, maybe 5,000 people watching the video. And I'm on my honeymoon, and I have my phone, and up until that point, there had been like a weekly discussion about should we stop making these videos. I've got two partners, and we're like having an ongoing discussion. Like, does this make sense to take this time, spend this money? And that's an ongoing decision. And like every week, we're kind of reevaluating. Like, we're at the point where like maybe we should stop. And I am sitting on my honeymoon, and I look at my phone, and I have like a billion notifications. I don't have notifications turned on my phone. It's my son. I don't have notifications for social media now because like I can't. And I don't mean that like in some kind of like braggy way. I just can't. Back then, like I got a message. I was like, oh shit, I got a message. Like, I'm going to read this right away. And I look at my phone, and I have like whatever I have, hundreds, thousands. And I'm like, wow, people are really excited that we got married. Everybody wants to tell me, say congratulations to us. In reality, I'd posted a video about how my friends complain when I travel, I cross off terms. At least I used to before it was electronic. I would cross off terms on a rental car contract. Like, you will not drive outside of the state. Yeah, I am. Cross it off. And then I'd hand it back. They'd hand me the keys. And that's a video, honestly, I think we had for months, just sitting there. And I was like, this doesn't have anything to do with what I do. This is a stupid video. Why are we going to do this one? And we probably were like, probably like, oh, Mike's out of the country on his honeymoon. Let's post this video now because he won't be able to say anything. And it gets posted. I'm like, oh. And what's wild is that video and others since have taught me that you cannot choose to go viral. Like, it just virality, if that's a word, if that's the right word, is by nature unplanned, uncontrolled. And it's crazy. I would say half the videos that have gone viral, whatever that means nowadays, I thought they were stupid videos. I was just like, this is dumb. We shouldn't even put this up. And then the ones that I think are amazing, like my favorite videos is one of our first videos that has great graphics. It tells a really cool story. No, nobody watched that. I'm going to post that. I'm going to post that soon again, see if I can get some better traction, because that's the one I love. But anyway, that's the story. And then from there, it wasn't a quick climb. It was still, we're now at year 3, and it's still a slow climb.
Well, and that's something my team, I don't know if your team has experienced this, but we've experienced we've only been in this game a few weeks, and often we are so frustrated by how hard it is to say what we need to say in a clip somewhere between 60 and maybe 90 seconds, because the law is so nuanced, and there's exceptions to exceptions, and we're like, how do we get an understandable soundbite out that isn't just active misinformation? I wonder if you had ever grappled with that or continue to grapple with it, and how your work with that is evolving over time.
My answer to that is it's something I struggle with every single day and every time we make videos. I struggle with it every day because in life, I am somebody who, I want to use the right word. I want to get it perfect. That's important to me. Maybe that's why I'm a lawyer. I don't know. And then when we do the videos, 60 seconds, I hear you, is an incredibly difficult time to say something meaningful and have it make sense. Uh, the people that comment on my videos, especially people who've watched for a while, you can kind of tell. It makes me so proud when people are like, well, he said this 3 weeks ago, and I'm like, this is awesome, because there can be legitimate discussions on the internet. It is possible. Those people are really good at cobbling together things, because in 60 seconds I can't give you exceptions. I can't talk about nuances. So I've done one video. I think I've done one video where I used a teleprompter on my phone. I will never do that again. I felt so uncomfortable. I didn't feel like I was authentic. So I've just kind of come to terms with the idea in videos that I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And as long as it is as accurate as it can be, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to be able to give you 100% of everything. And frankly, that's kind of my approach when I'm talking to a jury. I stand up. I was talking to a friend this weekend, and I was like, what are you up to? And I'm thinking he's going to say, I'm drinking a beer, sitting in my pool. It's the holiday weekend. And he's like, I'm writing an opening statement. And I was like, oh, you write those? And he goes, you don't? And I said, no, I don't. I write down some words on a piece of paper of what I'm going to say. And he goes, well, how do you know what you are going to say? And I go, well, I keep saying it over and over in my head, and then whatever comes out that day comes out. Although, and I made a video about this once, I can count maybe 5 times where I know I have to say something specific, and I will go to the table and say to the jury, yeah, I have to say this exactly right, so I'm going to read it to you. But like that's kind of, I think, what I've evolved into is my most important thing is I want to be myself, and I want to say what I want to say, how I want to say it. With cuts in videos, though, we've got to be careful, because sometimes you cut something one and you back on another cut and you're like, ooh, that was not what I intended to say. So as long as we're careful about that, I realize we're never going to be perfect, and that's difficult with lawyer ethical considerations. So that's why my videos, at least the daily videos that I put out, I'm not asking people to be my clients. I'm trying truly to just share information, educate people. There's no ask, there's no advertisement. I am just sharing information as a lawyer about my life, about the law, about running a law firm, about my kids, whatever I feel like talking about that day.
And you touched on 2 really interesting things there. Is you touched on the fact that you're a team, and I always like to ask, who on your team are you thankful for? What do they contribute to your success? And is there something you'd like to say to them that here on our show that you don't think is said enough?
Well, he's my main man is sitting right behind this camera, so I'm looking at him. I feel like I need to. Are we having an intervention? You guys gonna all stand up and be like, "Hey, Mike, we need to make sure that you are." But so when we talk about what I guess I'll call video Mike, that is a little different than me, and it is. I'm authentic when we film, but we have certain essential rules or parameters for how we make the videos to keep them consistent, to keep people engaged, and also to be true to what we've been putting out. And recently, we expanded our team. We hired somebody else, and I had to say to the most important person in this room, who's not me, is, what are those rules? I'd never asked. I was like, can you describe video Rafi to me? And I sat there like amazed about, the time, the thought, the effort, the energy, about what the rules are for making me on the internet. Because I think I do. I think I'm kind of actually toned down on the internet, because I can't use as many curse words, and I can't, say whatever I want, because I am trying to, I guess, better my business. But I think that the time and energy that editors and what I'll call like creative directors, because that's essentially what this person is a creative director. I think the time and energy that he puts in, I mean, maybe it's lucky that we're on the same sleep schedule or not, because I know at 2:00 in the morning I can send a text and there's an 80% chance I'm going to get one back, and I know at 9 in the morning I can do the same thing. He says to me all the time, I say, I think we have a viral one. He says that those are the messages I love to hear the best. The thing that I appreciate is, you have to sit, if you're editing videos, you have to sit, he's shaking his head right now, you have to sit and listen to me talk for hours every day. Like, when I get done with this, we're going to make some videos after this. We'll do, I don't know, an hour or two. I won't want to talk to anyone at all. And you got to go home. I'm sorry. You got to go home and like Listen to me? Oh, that's I think what happened at Guantanamo. I'm pretty sure that's what they were doing. They were just, using my voice to the detainees and screw habeas corpus, and we were just, that's how we're getting information, good or bad.
And what's so stunning about your content in particular, Mike, is that I've interacted with a lot of content creators, particularly in the last month, who've reached out and at least expressed tacit interest on being on our show. But we picked you first, both because we're fans, but also because you say you're toned down on the internet, but I think you and your team have done a phenomenal job reflecting who you are as a person to interact with in your clips and in your long form. I think Married to the Law has been really interesting for me because it tells
Thank you.
Yeah, it tells me a lot. I've watched every single one of them. It tells me who you are beyond your professional capacity. And I just wanted to give you a shout out that when I jumped on the phone with you initially for our quick 15-minute, intro call, I didn't expect to feel like I'm very aware that there's a filter between us, the audience, and the content creator, the person. The filter is as small as I have ever seen it, and I really want to compliment you. Yeah, your team,
you're getting
have done a phenomenal job making sure that you're authentic. And so what I'm getting at with this line of inquiry is what is authenticity to you and your team, to you as a professional or to you as a content creator? Because it seems to be intertwined in your brand in a way I've never seen before from a lawyer.
I appreciate the comments, and they mainly go to the team because the easiest thing is just talking, and that's what I do. Sometimes I wake up, roll out of bed, and the way we make videos is I have throughout we film, I don't know, every other week or so, sometimes more, sometimes less, and I'm just putting in notes in my phone, stuff that crosses my mind, or sending articles. And like last week when I sat down to do some videos, the first thing I was like, I got some things to say, and okay, yeah, go ahead. And I'm like, oh wait, I don't remember any of them. Hold on, let me check my emails and see what I emailed you over the last week of what I wanted to talk about. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to talk about that. So that's kind of how they come up. We have not written a single word ever, minus that one video on the teleprompter. But to me, that's who I am. If I was somebody though that felt more comfortable, and I've got a lawyer in my office who is going to write everything down and he's going to read things out loud, but that is what he's comfortable with and that's who he is, cool. Like that's who you should be. When it comes to authenticity, to me, whether I'm at work, whether I'm at home, whether I'm doing this, I don't consider this work or home. It's like this weird part-time job I have. That I just want to be able to go to sleep at night. And if I fail, I want to say I failed. Like Mike Rafi failed, as opposed to I failed and I wasn't myself and I don't know if I would have succeeded or not. And, for clients when they want to hire me, this is what you get. This is who I am. And if you are a juror, or I guess if you're a client and you're saying like, God, I would hate that guy to be my lawyer and I'd hate to be on the jury with that guy, don't hire me. But if, I think we do a good job of keeping jurors entertained, and I think we do a good job of keeping audience entertained. And I think the key is, I guess I've buried the lead here. I think the key is it's genuine excitement. Like this isn't bullshit. I'm excited to be here. I was excited when we talked. I was standing outside my garage, right down here. I'm excited to do these videos. And, when we start shooting and the camera comes on, it's not like I just like, there's a video I've seen of Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street where they go, action and he comes on. No. I'm sitting here ranting, talking about things that I'm excited about all day. So we just happen to turn a video camera on. And whether you're an employee at somebody at my firm or you're trying to get clients or you're trying to be in a relationship, whatever it is, I think if you're genuinely excited about that, I think that comes through, and especially in jury trials, we've had defense lawyers or other lawyers involved in cases where, I am here representing, and it's like the jury hates you, and I think what we do is a privilege on the work side, and I think it's a privilege that people watch these videos that you make and I make, and you've had a lot of success really recently. I think the reason is because you guys are actually excited about doing it. You're happy, like, it is genuine, and I think that comes through really, really easily. Although I will say I haven't slept since watching your videos because I have to take the bar exam in a year or two in another state is my plan to expand, and wow. Yeah. I mean, some studying is going to be necessary.
For us, I mean, I recently did, after we talked on the phone last week, I actually sat down with our team and was like, okay, I've got to take the bar exam now. I I can't look like the know-it-all genius. And then I went in and got like a 50% batting average on really basic questions because the audience won't see this in this episode. I think we're gonna be making some clips later, but you don't get the bar exam question written down. So
It gets read.
It gets read to you, and while you can have the question repeated and the answers repeated, it's really hard because you only have about a minute to answer and you don't get to look at it and lay out the elements. And so in defense to everyone who gets things wrong, we intentionally make it hard because a channel where everyone gets all the questions right is really boring, including myself.
I don't know what's more demoralizing. Is it being a lawyer, watching your videos and not getting the answer right, not even being close? Or I have a 5th grader who this was the year she realized, oh, I don't know everything. And you know, that math homework where I'm under the phone looking at Google trying to figure out how to do this, I got caught. So I don't know what made me feel worse more recently, that or this, but I am not smarter than a 5th grader. I learned that.
I mean, definitely not. I think I've stayed about as marginally smart as a 5th grader for quite some time, but I'm very confident while I do it. So it just keeps working and I just keep doubling down. I think that's, this is a great time for me to bring this in because you talk directly and indirectly about the impacts your family have on you, how much you care for your family, your wife, your children. And I really want to know, how is that?
They're okay.
Yeah, they're all right.
Okay.
They're kind of, you have them around sometimes, but how have your family shaped your worldview, your perspective, your professional ethos? How do they, light the air under your wings? Or how do you expect they'll contribute to your life moving forward? You seem to be very centered around them, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I think the off the cuff kind of not defensive, but like I have a wall up answer is, this is the answer I would give usually is, well, they're really expensive. So they shape my world because I work really, really hard, and I'm expensive too. It's not just them. So that's the walled off answer. I'll try to go a little deeper. I appreciate that you're one of the select number of podcast listeners. When we did that podcast, Married to the Law, our goal was to film ourselves with, this point in our life. Like that was our goal. It was very selfish to do. Or at least the goal was, obviously we had people watch it, but we knew at a minimum we would succeed because we'd like to do it. And we're going to kick it back off again for another reason that is more selfish than anything, because we have some changes going on in our life that we're excited about. And, we'll be able theoretically to go back and watch this. So I think that it is impossible to represent families. And let me preface this with saying, I am not a runaround, at least I try not to be, a runaround, make the world safer every single day. Everything needs to be safe, bubble wrap everyone. Insurance companies are evil. I don't believe that. I believe they play their role in for-profit companies, and it's not evil. It's corporate greed, but that's what it is. So I think, I try to bring perspective, and I try to, not be the helicopter parent who's worried about kids doing anything except if they're on trampolines. People, I hate trampolines. Don't go on trampolines. But other than that, so that's the preface, is that I try to be as balanced as I can. And with that said, though, I don't think you can represent families, which is what I do every day, without coming home and bringing that home and being worried about your family, or, sharing that. Last night at dinner, Charlie, who's the 5th grader, says, what are you working on? And I was like, I wasn't just trying to push her off. I was like, oh, too many cases right now, too many cases. And she goes, oh, tell me about 2. And I got to sit there and be like, what 2 are appropriate for her? Like, even if it is a car crash where maybe somebody, now lost their arm, maybe somebody has a brain injury, like, do I want to talk about that case with her in this moment? So we've covered a lot of topics. All the kids have been to a trial, which is exciting for me. They've all kind of seen, what goes on, at least what my role is in a day or 2 of court. But I think I'm taking deep breaths here, because I think it is, challenging to do this work, whether it's kind of like being a police officer in a way. The first day I was ever a plaintiff's lawyer, I switched from defense to plaintiffs. And I went from one office building that was on one corner, literally across the street, to the other office building. So I parked the same place. I walk into the different office. And the first day, I got a case where a woman was killed, and I got a banker's box, and I opened up the banker's box, took the lid off, and the first thing is pictures of a dead body. I mean, that was the welcome to you're a plaintiff's lawyer, and here's what it was. And, saw that on the defense side as well. But like, then it's, oh yeah, we have a call, later this week to talk to this family. And that's a very different experience. So I think that it makes you care about your family a lot. It makes you, want to protect them as best you can. And it makes you, though, really feel for the people that you help, because, it's impossible to not care about them the same way you care about everybody else in your life.
Mike, you talk about your care for the future. Is there anything you're afraid of, either for wider society or most concerned about for your family in the direction we're heading in? There's a lot of public discourse about the rule of law, or at least just the way we interact with each other online and the attention economy. Is your mind on any issues like that? Or is there anything you're looking forward to that maybe as a society may not be the most pleasant?
In my head, I'm saying, how weird do I want people to know that I am? Like, how crazy. So I'm going to give you one that's radical, and I'll give you one that I think is more reasonable and timely. So my biggest fear is that it is really difficult to gain rights back once you've lost them. So, I mean, we look at history, right? And in this country, look at history of the world. When citizens in a society lose rights, lose protections, it is extremely difficult to get them back. It is easier to take them away. And then people get used to those rights, not having those rights, or they didn't think those rights were important because it didn't affect them directly. And I worry in this time that we are living in right now, that we are losing rights, and people are being numb to the idea of losing rights because maybe they don't affect them on a daily basis. And I think it's going to be extremely challenging to get those rights back. And that worries me, both very centrally to my job. People are losing the right, the ability across the country in different states to bring certain lawsuits to, Georgia, for the Roundup weed killer, which is apparently causing cancer in, an incredible amount of people. The Georgia state legislature just made Roundup, the makers of Roundup, immune from civil lawsuits. We just said, hey, screw the citizens. And this is Georgia's the second state to it. Screw the citizens. Well, let's protect this big company who makes weed killer and chemicals. So if we're comfortable doing that, I worry that that's going to be a snowball, and it has been a snowball, I think, and I think probably the changing point is most likely September 11th, but that's a whole nother topic. The really big one, I'll tell you, which is the one where, like, you're sitting outside too late on a weekend, you've had maybe a couple of drinks, and one of your friends who you're real close with goes, the world is changing, and you get to that age where you have a beard and stuff. I get worried that corporations are more important than government. And what happens when government tries to regulate corporations, and at some point a corporation, maybe like Amazon, says, no, we don't agree. No, thank you. And the uprising that would happen if citizens sided with that corporation. And I worry, I don't know if I worry, I think that's where we're going, is that corporations will rule the world. But I think the corporations right now are more important, or at least are teetering to be more important than governments, because corporations are providing so much that citizens need, and government is failing in such a terrible way because, our government moves like molasses, and that was always the idea. Move slowly. Can't screw anything up if we move so slowly. Well, you can't keep up in this world if we're moving too slowly.
And what's something you wish, if you had a magic wand to address these problems, what's the one or two things you would change to move us in a more positive direction?
I think when it comes to social media and political campaigning and really any disagreement, ESPN, when you watch their debate shows, and this is hearkening back to, Jon Stewart a long time ago criticizing the folks on CNN when they're doing Crossfire, Tucker Carlson back when he was wearing a bow tie. It's a pretty famous clip, that they're the problem, that they're just, that it's two people arguing. The truth is, in society, most people are in the middle, but that doesn't move the polls. That doesn't get you content a lot of times. That doesn't get you views, and you're campaigning to people way on the left. Our governor, for example, Brian Kemp, had always been traditionally known as a moderate. We see that where he is kind of a foil of Trump in a lot of ways sometimes. But when he was running in a primary here in Georgia, here's a guy I wouldn't call him country in any way. He's certainly Georgia, But he, hopped in a pickup truck and did an ad where he said he's going to round up the illegals himself, or he did an ad where he's sitting on the porch with a gun and, come take my gun kind of thing. That's targeting a very specific group of people. And that is not the majority. That's not even near, a substantial minority. So I think most people in the world want roads, education, bridges. We want healthcare, hopefully in some way. Those issues are middle of the road. And when it comes to being hurt and being a personal injury lawyer, most people when they get hurt want the other side to say, "Hey, I'm sorry, my fault. I shouldn't have done that. Didn't mean it. What can I do to make it better?" And if we stay in that middle ground, it may not be as exciting when we turn on the TV or turn on, or flip up our phone. I think we'll have better discourse, and I think people will, understand each other better. I like jump up and down when I see that some of my comment goes, "Oh, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me that." Or, two people are debating. Those are the ones that pop up constantly. Two people just going at it in my comments, and I'll take a look, and sometimes they end where somebody goes, "Oh, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me." Other times, and a lot of times it ends with somebody, no matter what I say or no matter what anybody says, your opinion isn't going to be changed. And we have to be willing to change our opinions.
And it's so interesting because the attention economy that you're describing, it has such polarized extremes. And we were very hesitant to get into it initially as a legal team because for those in the audience that may not know, we have a civil litigation practice here. This podcast studio that I'm sitting in is actually in our offices at our law firm. And we were so worried about being perceived beyond rigid professionalism as traditionally defined. But ultimately, we decided that the attention economy, for whatever whims it may subject us to, could be a force for good as well as a force for extremes. And we started out, Mike, you may not know this. We actually started out, it's called Gossip Without Prejudice because we started out doing bar misconduct profiles. So we started out because the discipliner notices are public and it has a full factual finding. So we're able to go on there and just tell people about these crazy, stupid attorneys that have been found to, be kicked off the bar. And then things started, and then the calls for habeas corpus to be, and et al. To be suspended, to be eroded, sort of started kicking off. And I saw so many people outside of the law not understanding what that meant for their everyday lives. And that has sort of overtaken the mission of this podcast and our, a small media assemblage here because we care about these things. And I don't know about you, but go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, my balancing act is I try really hard, people might not believe this, to not be political. I try to call balls and strikes as I see them and tell you my views of what's crap and what's not. But I don't know my politics. Like I have no idea what my politics are. I know what my politics are. I don't know what group out there represents that. I don't know if that exists. And I think a lot of people probably feel that way. But, I didn't talk much about the Biden administration because there wasn't much that happened that affected my clients, my livelihood, my family. And that's in terms of I do legal videos. Yep. So in terms of legal side, I didn't wake up one morning and be like, "Hey, now I got to go back to how I took Latin class for 5 years and habeas corpus means bring me the body," or, I wasn't great at Latin, but whatever the actual translation is, that was not on my bingo card. Neither was, due process, explain to people what due process is. So I feel that I sort of have a duty. I have a responsibility that if I'm going to give you content, my goal is to help you and make you think a little bit and teach you something you don't know. I need to tell you why the hell due process is so important and why habeas corpus, Christy Nome, does not mean bringing the president's right to remove people and deport people. It's literally the exact opposite. So, and people, I think, take that as political commentary. To me, I get it. I see why they do that. To me, though, that is lawyer content, and there is a right or wrong answer. And I'm giving you the right answer. The right answer is this is what due process is, and this is why it's important. This is what habeas corpus is, and this is why it's so important. Those aren't debatable. You can debate whether it should be suspended based on the supposed invasion and all that stuff. You can do that. That's what I'll leave the viewers to do. I'm just giving the information what the law is. I'm going to roll my eyes. I'm going to make my face because that's who I am. And that's, I can't say some of this crap without doing that.
Yeah.
But that's the purpose of when I make those videos.
It's tough and I've sort of found myself in the same boat, is that Personally, I think I'm real enough to realize I lean left just because I grew up here in Seattle, very densely liberal per capita, traditionally has voted left since like 1992 or something like that, the dawn of the modern age and the internet, and we remain doing so. But I care less about tax policy as I do as much like consistency and the rule of law being universally applied no matter who you are, rich, poor, left, right. And that's so often been under attack. And I want to ask you, for your viewers, what do you wish you could talk about more? Either just legal content, political content, what's something that you wish the algorithm let you engage with more that maybe may not have as much of a platform because of the constraints of the system we're in?
That is a really good question. That's to wrap up, while I think in the back of my brain, to wrap up the kind of the politics side of this, I grew up in New Jersey. I thought I was a conservative Republican at that point, a New Jersey conservative Republican, whatever that means. I went to school in South Carolina. I went to a small school that was part of the Baptist Convention up until 1991. Didn't really totally understand that when I got there, or before I got there. Then I quickly understood. I worked for Lindsey Graham when he was, not crazy, and was like with John McCain, and they were, trying to bridge the gap between the two aisles, two sides of the aisle. I went and worked at Fox News. So like, I give these examples because now, if you read comments on my videos, a lot of them are you crazy left-wing nut, and I'm like, damn. 5 videos ago, somebody called me a conservative, freak or something. So if y'all can't decide, I guess I'm doing what I think my role is here, which is, not being biased one way or another. But, I'm of the very strong belief that there are a lot of things that don't require two sides of an argument. There isn't an argument. And if we give equal time to both arguments, that's a problem. Like that in and of itself, and which maybe the reason why Trump was first elected, for his first term, is he was given more time, and just having that platform matters a lot. So I don't want to do political content. I hope the politics are boring. I hope that government just continues on. I hope, roads are built. I hope schools, I hope hospitals get built. I hope doctors, are able to go to Harvard Medical School, even if they're not from our country. All that kind of stuff, I hope just normally happens. I want a boring government, and I'll stop making videos about topics that are in the news when that happens. The algorithm is funny because it likes me, or at least it requires me. And that makes it a little difficult to kind of expand my universe. So I would love to take like a 1-month break and be like, hey, Chris Stokes, you got a better beard than me. A little shorter, but you got a better beard. I taught you everything you know. And why don't you make videos for 2 weeks? The algorithm would get very, very mad at that. So with few exceptions, I have to be doing every video, which I like doing this. That's why I choose to do it. But a lot of times it has to just be me. And I'd really like to do what you're doing. Expand a little bit. I'm interested to see what the success of this is. I also, I don't know if people realize, like, this is on a monthly basis. This whole thing is 2% of my time, maybe. Like I flew up to New York and spoke at a conference where we actually talked about ethics and social media, which was really interesting. I had kind of silk stocking defense lawyers being like, we don't allow our employees to do social media. And I'm like, I think the quote was, somebody said, we wouldn't allow our clients to be on social media. And I was like, I got a 16-year-old. Do you think I'm gonna tell that 16-year-old to get off social media? She's gonna fire me. I'm just gonna tell her, don't do stupid stuff on social media, right? So I have a very different view than them. But that trip alone, just flying up there, doing the conference, flying back, took more time than I will spend doing video stuff in a month. So my full-time real job is being a very real lawyer. This is what I do. And, I've tried every case at my firm and probably will continue to do so. And, I've got cases that I manage the day-to-day of, and then I manage all the lawyers, and we have a staff of 14 people. I mean, this is what we do full-time. So I would love to kind of introduce those people to the plot line a little bit so you can see, because, some of them will say things that I think viewers would find really funny about me, or that they'd, enjoy hearing about. So we've tried things like come with me to a deposition. I did a day in the life video, but then you start getting into confidentiality problems and privilege problems. So it is really difficult to introduce my world, which was part of the reason that, felt comfortable doing the podcast with my wife, because we figured, if you sit there through me and her talking for an hour, you must like us. Like, she was surprised there were no mean comments. And I was like, well, that somebody sitting there through there for an hour just to write one mean comment, I'd give them credit. That's a lot of engagement and a lot of focus for them. So that's what I wish I could do, is I wish I could kind of expand so people can get a better idea of kind of the things that we do, who we help, how we do it, and what other people's opinions are. Because in my office, I mean, I'm just Mike. Like, I'm the least important person literally in the office. I come there and people tell me what to do. Like, that's how it works.
And it's so interesting because so much of what I would describe as your media empire, because you have a very towering affect in the minds of many of my team, because you're on our feed so often. So, you're top of mind whenever we think of personal injury. You're the first person we think of. What I would define as your media empire is so tied to you personally. What do you want to leave behind? The legacy, the business, whatever it may be. What do you want to leave behind when this social media thing eventually isn't for you anymore?
Oh, that's a really good one. When the social media thing isn't a thing anymore, or when I don't want to do the videos, I mean, I guess my answer is that I like teaching people. I really like teaching. I like when it was fourth grade and I could do fourth grade math. I like, I like talking. We were talking last night about every night at 7 when my son goes to bed, we have this foam ball that we literally bought on TikTok. It's the only thing I've ever bought on TikTok, but it doesn't make noise. I feel like the cool dad who lets kids bounce the ball in the house. And we throw that ball around. I don't know. I'm going to have, my kids are going to be dishing out assists like Steph Curry or something if they ever decide to play sports. By the way, have no competitive drive. None of them do. They have no competitive drive, which kills me. But we're sitting there and we're talking about, I wish I could remember now. It might even been a religious topic. We were talking about baptism in different religions. So like, I enjoy talking to them asking questions, me asking them questions about what they think. And I enjoy, I probably spend more time coaching and helping out with mock trial programs and moot court programs. I was the sponsor of a college mock trial tournament a couple of months ago at my alma mater, Furman University, which is really involved in college mock trial. I'm really involved with, moot court mock trial. And it's very selfish. I mean, I believe generally people do good things for selfish reasons. And that selfish reason isn't a bad selfish reason. It just means it makes you feel good. And talking about this stuff, sometimes I dominate the conversation, so apologize in advance. I should apologize before I started. It makes me feel good. What lawyer doesn't like talking about themselves? So I always say that my dream job is to teach. And I don't want to sell you a bullshit course. I don't want to tell you all the secrets to get, I don't want to do that. The reason I don't do that is because it's better, frankly, financially for me to make my own videos, do a really good job, do really good legal work like that. Anyone who's selling you a course of how to do it, why don't you do it and make all the money in the world? I don't get it. So I would teach like a real teaching job. My wife's a teacher. I would love to teach at a law school. I'd love to teach at an undergrad school where, you talk about legal issues, and that would make me really happy.
And I actually want to dig into that a little farther, because you may or may not know, I'm a law student at Seattle University School of Law here in Seattle, Washington, as you might guess. What is a piece of advice first that you would give to law students or anyone interested in going into the law? And then next, I want to warn you, what is your piece of advice for other practitioners or peers that are already in the law? So I'll give you the two-part question.
Let me take them in reverse.
Okay.
Because I'm wound up this morning because a lawyer that I don't like on a human level, like I don't like as a person, is now just kind of swooped in, is defending a case that's really important to me. So my message, he's on my mind, and I'm thinking of all the reasons I don't like him. My message to all lawyers and judges, frankly, is that old professionalism is dead. I believe that. Old professionalism to me is the old lawyer stuff of you just pick up the phone and you'll work it out. I had a lawyer I used to work with. I worked at a 800 person law firm when I first got out of law school, so there was an opinion for everything. But one of the people there said, you never file a motion against another lawyer. You invite them to breakfast. And Silver Skillet, which is a famous breakfast place here in Atlanta, it's a lot of movies. He's like, you take them there. No, I'm not. That's not me. I'm not going to do that. To me, in my world, I know other lawyers are different. In my world, it is me against the other lawyer. I get paid if I win. I spend money to win. If I don't win, I lose everything, my time, my money, my energy, everything. And my client loses too. So my financial motives are aligned with my client. And if you screw with that, I take that very personally because you are affecting my personal life. And I think as we become less intertwined in community and neighborhood, those old ways of picking up the phone, sending a nice email, writing a letter, that isn't going to work because we are a transactional economy now where I do this, then I do this, then I do this, then I do this. And I think we need to adapt to that. And the standards of professionalism, I don't think it's professional. I don't think it's unprofessional to call a spade, say what you think, and I'm not going to be deferential because you're older. I'm not going to be deferential because you work at a certain place. I'm not going to be deferential because this is the way you've always done it. In fact, that's going to make steam come out of my head. So I think that that's what we need to express to lawyers is that we are not special. We are like everyone else. And when your neighbor when your next door neighbor does something wrong, builds a fence on your property, takes your trash cans, hits your mailbox, you go over there and you say, I don't know if I can say this on your show, what the fuck? And when have my tie on, I call up the lawyer and I go, what the fuck? Like that's what I'm gonna do. So anyway, I think the key to other lawyers is be yourself. If that's not you, don't do that. But be yourself and just know you're allowed to be a human and talk the way you talk and act the way you act and hold people accountable the way you would hold your friends accountable at your job. You don't owe anything to anyone else. For law students, I think the best advice I can give you is that your clients, your future clients, your future colleagues, your future connections and network, you're around them right now. So look around your classroom. These are the people that you're going to call when you need a will. You're going to call when your friend's going through a divorce and you need to recommend somebody, or they were in front of a judge and you want to ask about the judge, whatever it is. And they're the people that are going to send you business. So if I could go back in time, I went to a law school with about 200 students, a little more than 200 students per class. Mm-hmm. So my first year, there were 600 new people. And then every year after that, I added 200 new people. So I had about 1,000 people that I would have interacted with in law school student-wise. I wish I would have graduated and had every single one of their names, contact information, what they were interested in, and maybe like a fun fact about them, where they were from, where they went to undergrad, something like that. And then I wish I would have done a better job. We tried to do this on the back end. I wish I would have done a better job right out of law school keeping up with these people, because it's so much easier, so much easier to keep a connection than make a new one. It's the investment, the time investment of trying to get a new person, new lawyer to trust me, to have a case that they think is valuable, to trust me, to call me, to hire me to do that case. Because most of my work comes from lawyers, doesn't come from the internet. It comes from other lawyers trusting us to do work. That is so much easier if I know the lawyer, as opposed to starting with a, hi, I'm Mike, can I take you to lunch? That's a whole investment. So,
and I really want to thank you for that perspective, because I share a lot of those views you just highlighted. I think I can't speak specifically for your bar, but in family law here in Washington, we don't even get paid on contingency. We all get paid, 99% of us get paid hourly. And even our bar is notoriously toxic. We treat each other, in my opinion, very poorly, in excess of the merits of the matter before us usually, and we hold grudges beyond the bounds of each client's representation, even if we were just doing our jobs. And I think there's a lot of hesitancy to rock the boat and stand up and speak out in a lot of ways, because a lot of the people who treat people the worst tend to also be the most powerful people at the top of the pyramids in our market, in our geography. Like the partners at all the other large, I say large, but they're like, 50 attorneys. It's large for our market. Large family law firms usually behind the scenes treat our staff very terribly on emails. And I think I so often despair that, I see my team getting mistreated and they just go, it's just the way it is. It's the way we all do it to one another. And I just want to know if anything like that specifically bleeds through, in your interactions with other counsel, defense or, co-counsel, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, I've got two lawyers I can think of that the rule in my office is don't email that person. You're not going to get anything productive. It's going to devolve. I've talked in videos about my arch enemy who lives across the street from me, like right there. I could throw a baseball through his window. I think about it often. I will not email him because I know that there's nothing good can possibly come from it. So, there are lawyers, I think, that you've got glasses, so I'm not going to do it. But it's the kid growing up that was like putting up the glasses and like, no, you were wrong, and here, like, and they have to be right? They have to be right about absolutely everything, and they miss the big picture. Those are the lawyers that are best for my cases. When I say that, on the other side, like if a pedantic, annoying lawyer who all they care about is that they are right about such stupid stuff, like, great, come on, join my case, because you might be right about something that I don't care about, and I'm going to win, a verdict of millions of dollars, and you're going to be confused about how that happened. So I think that there's a really tough balancing act that lawyers need to do, especially on the defense side, of being strong for their clients. And on the family side, I can't even imagine it. Like, you're nice to the other lawyer, and next thing your client's mad at you for being nice to the person that they're projecting at. But I think the best lawyers, on the defense side, say it's not my money. So I don't care. It's not my money. I care to do a good job, but I don't care what the outcome is. That's not my decision. And I think that, lawyers, the idea of working together, it used to be that lawyers had a lot of control over their clients. I still have control over my clients. I won't represent someone. And when I say control, I'm not going to represent somebody who says, do this, and I go, I don't agree with this, and I strenuously don't agree. In my house, my wife, when we're trying to make a decision, I say to her, like, how much do you care about it? And she'll be like, 6. And I'm like, I'm only at 4, so you make the decision. Like, but if I'm at a 10 and you're at a 6, I make the decision, right? So assuming we don't care that much. But with clients, if a client says to me, I want you to do this or not do this, and I'm like, I completely disagree and it's important to me, I'm not going to continue to represent you. It rarely ever happens, but I have that right. Defense lawyers, I think, like citizens, they've been stripped away of their rights because they now don't have settlement authority. They now can't speak for their client. They now don't know, what's going on internally with their client. Like, they are not as involved in the defense as they once were. And as a result, for me, it's talking to a door a lot of times. And I think the defense side is frustrated by that, and it puts them in a really bad spot. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of what I see going on in the lay of the land. I've got a buddy, though, who was a family lawyer before becoming a personal injury lawyer.
Oh, my condolences.
And I'll have to find it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to find it and send it to you guys. But it is a transcript that is the best deposition I've ever read. I think it starts with, "Would you please state your name?" And the husband or the wife, whoever's being deposed, goes, "You know my effing name. You knew my name when you cheated. You knew," and just starts screaming. I don't see that every day, which is good.
Whenever we have 3 summer associates joining us in just a handful of days, it's our largest class ever. We're taking on 1 additional summer associate every year because we're growing pretty quickly. And when they get here, their first day is, we say, "Congratulations. Family law alone is responsible for 98% of the per capita injury rate in the legal industry. You now find yourself directly in the crosshairs of just about every crazy and physically dangerous person the law has to offer. But you are here, just like my team, because we, no disrespect to the fine personal injury profession. You guys do fantastic work for plaintiffs and defendants on the merits. We feel that family law is the only accessible area of law that we can practice that does not trade in what we call vengeance, which is to say it goes back and fixes something that has already happened. And that's sometimes very necessary. You got to right those wrongs in the best way the law can, which is usually money. Yeah. Right. But we fight for your future with your kids, which literally cannot be quantified. Right. And so therefore, the only thing left is to fix the problems before it happens. And that's why we put up with all this abuse. It's why, we allow ourselves to be abused sometimes by our clients, though our clients are more well-behaved than most because we have a really great client base, by other counsel. And when judges don't read our pleadings properly and just get outright factual errors, which sometimes happens because judges are human, despite the best.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, their best efforts.
Can't believe it.
When they're not recharging in their judicial robot closets. We're in this because we care about our clients, and I see a lot of that shining through with you, Mike. And I think we always end these interviews, because we're coming up on the hour mark or so, by asking, What do you want? What do you want to ask me? What do you want to know about Hemmat Law, and what do you want to know about either me as a host or me as a person? Because I really want to share more about myself to our audience, and this is always our best way to do it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I'll say about the idea that clients, I'll kind of tie up the idea that clients are sometimes very difficult and abusive. The one of the rules in my firm is if you treat our staff poorly, and I'm talking non-lawyers, rule probably should apply to everybody, but if you treat our staff poorly, you will not be our client. I mean, that is a bar none rule that we have. We warn you if that happens. But the best clients that I have come to me and say, I mean, I feel awkward calling you. I'm somebody who never sues. I've never won. And I'm like, good, me too. Like I'm the least likely person to sue anyone. If you came to me and said, I want to sue, let's sue everybody. No, thank you. We're not a good match. So part of it is picking your clients, which it seems like you guys do a really good job of. And then, part of it is also meeting their expectations, telling them we're going to call you every month. We're going to tell you, this is what we do. We're going to call you every month. We're going to tell you what we did last month, tell you what we're doing this month, tell you what we're doing next month. We're going to fill you in with when things that happen in the meantime, but at a minimum, you can expect this. And meeting those expectations, I think, goes a long way, especially in the first, couple months of representation, because like once you got me, if I say, hey, I can't talk today, I'll call you next week. If that happens week one, you're like, oh, I'm not important. If that happens after I've put in hundreds of hours on your case and spent tens of hours on the phone with you, talking to you, and my team has done the same, you get it. Like, that I'm working hard for you and everybody else. So that's the thing that I have to throw defense lawyers a bone. That's the thing, and you have too. That's the thing that we have, is that we can say no. Most times on the defense side, when you're representing, X insurance company and all of their customers, you don't get to say no to crazy Susan. I'm trying to give Karens a break lately, but crazy Susans and crazy Marks who, are going to be terrible clients and ruin your day. Because I do have clients that from time to time in the past have literally ruined my day, and that's not fun. Makes me not want to go to work. It makes me a jerk, sometimes, and cranky, and I try not to do that. Here's what I got to ask you is, I got two for you. That's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So one, since we're doing this podcast, I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. You mentioned that this is the first one you've done not in your studio, and that I appreciate you asking me. I mean, I really do. How have you decided, or what's the thought process of why you want to reach out to other lawyers, and how have you gone about that? Walk me through that, because that is something that I don't know anything about, because I haven't done this, and I'd love to learn a little bit from you guys.
Sure. So do you want to know specifically about our process or more about our ethos? I just want to know what to focus on.
The ethos, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So we cheat, right? Our mission here is to teach people about the law and how it fails us, right? And that's a tagline that we found a lot of practitioners on and off social media have really gravitated towards, because so many of them are not as forward, I want to say forward as you, but like a lot of them still have a lot of hesitancy about being truly authentic and honest in any public sphere, be that in the town square, on TikTok, wherever. And they harbor so much resentment against either the system, their clients, the other, it's something. Everyone's got something, a chip on their shoulder. But we as legal practitioners, we create this environment where everyone's disgusted, but no one stands up. Because you don't want to be the nail that sticks out, and then the risk is that you get hammered back down, or that someone makes an example of you, right? Just in general. And I think our ethos has been, we want to reach out to practitioners who break that mold in really creative and unique ways. And you were one of our first, because we felt that we could feel who you were better than someone like Devin Stone, Legal Eagle, big YouTuber. He's not as much on TikTok, but I actually used to work with him and his team as their family law provider, as part of the Eagle team here in Washington State. Okay. We were their sole provider. But he puts, not to put him on blast, he does fantastic work. He puts so many layers between him and his mission that he's become rather corporatized lately. And so my team reaches out to 8 practitioners who know what they're talking about, and that's fucking you. Yes, you can swear on this podcast. I say right at the end.
Okay. Whew.
I say, whoa, holy shit, Sam.
Lost a lot of. Yeah, I could have used so many other words.
Holy fuck, are we not allowed to swear here? And then who? I really should have put that in the briefing at the start. I'll add that to my notes. And then 2 who are just really interesting and charismatic, because there's lots of attorneys who are authentic. There's fewer attorneys who are authentic and informative and correct. And there's even fewer of those people who are fun and engaging to talk to. And that's how we've selected. And honestly, I can't even fully answer that because we've grown our audience by about 2,400% in the last 4 weeks, right? And so,
do you think you'll keep going and expand interviews wise? Is that part of, you think they'll keep going on?
We're thinking about that. The current thinking is that we're hesitant to become an interview show because you run out of interesting people to interview. It's not that like there's limited people in the world. It's just like, I don't want to bring in Joe Schmo associate at Perkins Coie every other week. Right. So we're not.
And every lawyer does that. And it runs its course. That's what I said I don't want to do too.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're bringing in what guests we can that we find entertaining, engaging, but we make no promises. Like we even say it in our podcast description, maybe a guest or two. Right. And so we brought in we actually have a lot of folks here in Seattle that we really want to speak with. And we spent, to be transparent, we spent like $15,000 building the studio and taking up space in our office. Even though we had no audience and revenue at first, because that authenticity of sitting across the table from someone and looking them in the eye and saying, what are you about, is so much easier to capture with most people. Unlike you. You have a fantastic personality that's very easy to engage with over Zoom. That is not the case for most people, and definitely not the case with most attorneys who are not camera ready.
Well, the secret is I don't like to leave my house, that I'm very much a homebody. So like as many communications as I can have by me talking to this thing and you talking there makes my life better because my wife, it frustrates my wife sometimes. She's like, get the heck out of the house. And, or I'm like, hey, can you guys just be a little quiet? I got something that's kind of important right at this moment. She's like, no, you go to your office. You have a whole office. And she's right. She's 100% right. But the positive of this is that like I get to steal 10 minutes with kids when they get home, or I get to, whatever, I get to screw around with her and in the middle of the day for a couple minutes. But that's why I think I may, it's the Spotify year rewind thing where they tell you what songs. I wish they did a Zoom one. Like you spent the most time on Zoom. You're in the top 1% of Zoom meetings. I wouldn't compete with somebody who has like a meeting only job, but like in actual conversations, I got to be up there.
We've got to have like a ranked leaderboard for, like partners and equity holders in the US, like who spent the most time in Zoom and team meetings. Anyways, and then I'll actually end up answering both. And then our method, which is very easy to summarize, is we just reach out. We usually just DM them. We try and avoid emails. We try and go to DMs. And we're actually learning that our casting expertise is pretty good because the attorneys who we want to speak with tend to be people who don't have teams monitoring their inbox.
Well, do you tell the story from your side about messaging me? Because I'll tell you, after you tell yours, I'll tell you from my side what it was, because I thought that was pretty funny.
So
in my world.
For the audience, a couple of weeks ago, maybe 10 days might be more like, is that I just, from our podcast account, I just DM'd Mike and I was like, hey man, love what you're doing. You want to just answer some bar exam questions? And I was like, hey, Team Rafi, no way he's going to see this because I presume he's big enough that he has at least 2 staff members managing his comments, DMs, whatever. And then Mike just responds a day later himself. And he was like, yeah, dude, here I am. Like, you don't need to... You don't need to do all that. And then we just got in touch with him. And then he so kindly volunteered to just give some random guy in Seattle with a tiny account 15 minutes of his time to jump on the phone. And I just thought that was the coolest fucking thing. That was the coolest reach out we've done so far.
No, I appreciate the message. And to give myself a little bit of credit, I responded in 6 hours.
Oh, true.
And it was the same day. So response time is
misinformation.
Huge. But, no, I literally I think I wrote, I got it pulled up. I said, hey, congratulations on the success in a short amount of time. This is Mike, by the way. I don't know what time zone you're in, but I'm sitting on my couch watching Netflix. So I'm happy to discuss now if you want to talk today or tomorrow. Like literally, I was sitting on my couch. I was like, yeah, you want to talk now? I don't care. Like I got nothing else to do. There's not, what does pseudo fame or notoriety get you? You sit on your couch, and I wasn't even watching Netflix. I was flipping through trying to figure out what to watch on Netflix, which is a show in and of its own.
Well, because it was I think it was a Saturday, and I was actually sitting down to watch Drive to Survive, and which is a fantastic Netflix. We've gotten really into Formula One. Is Drive to Survive is a quasi reality TV documentary of each Formula One season. For those of you not familiar.
Yeah, I've watched this season. I've watched one.
Yeah. And me and my partner have gotten really into that. And the reason Mike reached out that same day, and I was like in relaxation mode. And the reason I was like, oh my God, I'm going to reach back out next week is because I was completely unprepared to like, I had to like go and talk to the team to be like, oh my God, what do I say? He actually responded.
I would have laughed my ass off if you wrote back. Actually, I'm right in the middle of season 4, episode 2, Drive to Survive. I can't talk right now, but let's talk tomorrow. I would have laughed and like, that is awesome. That is awesome.
And I think that's a real learning opportunity for me because I'm still very uncomfortable, not uncomfortable, but like I'm good on camera, but I'm still very much coming into my own as any sort of creator. Like I don't have a personal account, so to speak. I run this podcast, but I don't have like a John Avi Sosha following. Like the account is there on TikTok, but it has no videos, follows no one, and it's a stump. And I think I really need to lean into that more. I think it's a point of improvement for me is that I got to be more authentic because I almost thought about messaging that. And I know we don't get credit for like almost, but I almost was like, oh, I really recommend, Drive to Survive. Love is Blind. Me and my partner have a lot of ties to the Midwest, and it was in Minneapolis this latest season, and we had so many things to talk about. We've been rewatching that recently. So many other things, but it's always great to see when people have real human connections, particularly in our industry.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the personal side of things is tough as more people watch your videos, because then you really start having to think, what am I going to share? I mean, my wife's stuff is all private because, she shares more stuff than I do. Every once in a while I'll share something and she'll be like, really? I think I shared Wells the other night in a bathtub and he was naked, and she was like, really? Like, and I was like, no, sorry, I didn't think. Like, I still think about my Instagram as my Instagram, where I post stupid stuff that is purely me. And sometimes that's tough with the viewership, I guess, that we have. So I don't know. I'll leave you with this story, and I may have told you this when we were talking on the phone the first time, but my 5th grader knows what TikTok is and knows what social media is. And every once in a while, somebody will come up and say, oh, hey, you're Mike, right? The lawyer. And it happened at the airport somewhat recently, where we're at the ticket, where we're getting on the plane. So, swipe your ticket. And the guy at the ticket counter goes, oh, you Mike, the lawyer? And I go, yeah, good to meet you. And I always try, one thing I've really tried to do is I always try to ask the other person's name. Oh, what's your name? Because mine, because it's the one-sided relationship, if you want to call it that. Like, my name and about me. So I always try to say, oh, what is your name? Hey, John, nice to meet you. Great. Awesome. And it's genuine. I want to know your name. And I did that and talked to him for like 10 seconds, which is a long time when you have the whole rest of the plane trying to get on. And we get down the jetway, and my 10-year-old or 11-year-old now says, are you famous? And I looked at her stone cold in the face, and I went, yes. Which is absolutely not true at all. 100% not true. But for and she didn't believe it, but for a fleeting second, she was like, oh yeah. And then it was like, oh no, you're not.
It's
but that's the fame I strive to, is just one of my kids being like, oh, you do cool stuff. Like that's what I'm striving for here. That's it.
It's so strange that Trevor Noah has said that like fame robs you of your ability to write your own story. Often, like if you're famous enough, you have diminished capacity for first impressions, right? And that actually happened to me. It's only been a few weeks. We've gotten like about 8 or 9 million views across TikTok and Instagram in the last couple months, or in the last like 28 days, actually. And my law school is 2 blocks from our office, right? We're in Capitol Hill, which is very close to Seattle University campus. I went to an open house for the start of the summer, the little summer courses they take to just, meet and greet. And 4 people recognized me who I have never met before. And that excited me, but it also, I think a part of me was deeply disturbed, because I was like, I knew intellectually that people would start to see me, but to have eyes upon me is something that I will have to adjust to, because my partner is not like, she's on board with this in the sense that I'm doing it, but like ultimately it's her privacy too in our household. And I think I found myself thinking about that a lot. If this keeps going anywhere near what we think it will be one of the largest bar education TikToks within about 6 months on like anywhere on social media.
You asked me, I told you I wanted to ask you 2 questions, and I know I'm way past time, so this could literally just be me and you. Are you introverted or extroverted, or where do you fall on that spectrum? Because I have learned that, and everyone assumes that I'm extroverted, because but I feel comfortable, like I'm in my space. Like you're this is where I spend most of my working day in this. I'm in a big room, but this is like I'm comfortable here. I am I am extroverted for in real life for like a solid 7 minutes. And then I got to get out of there. Like that is, if you're not like one of my people and I don't already have, like I don't, that's not my favorite thing to do. It is, I think the definition of being introverted is that, communication with others and all that kind of, or at least a symptom is that it tires you.
Yeah.
And it does tire and give me anxiety. But like whether if I'm in court, if I'm at my office, I'm at home, I'm comfortable. I feel good. But like after a trial for a week, I want to sleep for 2 months because I've put all that out there. So I don't know. Everybody comes up to me. The few people that do come up, and I always feel like I'm disappointing because I'm not as everything, whatever that is, that you hope I will be, because I'm boring and somewhat quiet and reserved outside of this role and the role that I'm comfortable in.
It's so awesome you bring that up, because like I don't want to say catastrophically introverted, but like, do you know at parties, I knew the separation of powers in high school, so I didn't get invited to many, but even so, at that parties where you see a triangle of 3 people, and there are just some people on earth that can just insert themselves beautifully into whatever dynamic is going on there to start their own conversation or add to theirs. Not me. Even now, when I just turned 28 earlier this month, I am very, like, if there's more than 3 people around me, I shut down. Because I'm not good at holding court is the way I'd put it. Like, I have great engagement. I can look someone in the eye and meet them wherever their ideas are. I am not a shy person. I'm actually very loud and boisterous, but I run out of energy. I've got like 3 hours of socialization every 2 days.
Yeah.
Right. And that's assuming that I can have all of Saturday and half of Sunday to just like stare at a wall and talk to no one.
So this whole social battery thing, which I think to me, and maybe I'm a millennial, so like maybe I'm behind the times, but the social battery, that phrase I had never heard until after a trial, when I said to my client, hey, do you want to go? We were in between something, and I said, do you want to go do this or do whatever? And he looks at me and goes, his name was Asher, and Asher looks at me and goes, Mike, my social battery is really low, and I like I got it, I knew what it meant. But I went home and I was like, said to my wife, who's very like working with kids and she's much more in tune with feelings and self-aware than I am. And I go, he said social battery. And she goes, yeah, you have really low social battery. And I was like, oh, okay. I hadn't come to that conclusion myself.
Congratulations on your diagnosis. Yeah.
Yeah, she is the queen, the diagnosis queen. So I've got everything that I think I can imagine. And she's like my own version of WebMD. She's like, oh, what's wrong? I'll tell you what's wrong. I'll tell you all the side effects as well. But yeah, I mean, so that is something I think that doesn't come through in the videos, is how I interact in real life, besides how I interact when I'm speaking at you to hopefully teach and entertain you. That is in some way just one version of kind of me and all of us. And I think that's something that, that hopefully people aren't underwhelmed when they talk to me in person.
Like I've always had the ability to command a room, but I can't sustainably command its attention for longer than about an hour. Right. And people always look, and it's been so hard to share that experience with people, because they're like, I don't think this. I've just been told, John, you appear to ooze charisma. You know exactly what to say to make an awkward moment pass. You can, share ideas eloquently. And I've always said that, like, I actually don't think extroversion and introversion are correlated with social skills. I just think the extroverts happen to get more practice, and so therefore they get more skilled at it over time, and then the zeitgeist gets around, and then it becomes a stereotype, right? I know introverts. My father is also a very hardcore introvert, and he is also very charming when he can or wants to be. And then, like me, he just flips off the switch at the family function, gets his magazine, and then that's it. He's there. He's physically in the room, but he is no longer with us. You know what I mean? And I think I struggled with that. If I can be honest, I think I've struggled with that in my relationship, because it's hard for me to come out of that shell once my body and mind has decided I need it. And that's not always compatible with like my partner, who's a hardcore 100% extrovert all the time. It's actually one of the reasons why I love her so much, is because she attracts, makes, keeps, and entertains friends forever. And it's one of the things I'm trying to aspire better to be. But in the meantime, I'm using my talents to get really analytical, to try and give myself a pulpit for maybe, if not change the world, then maybe move the needle slightly in the right direction.
That's a good mission.
Yes.
That's a good mission.
Mike,
it's a good mission.
I so appreciate you coming to join us today. And for the audience, know that we are also going to be releasing some Mike Takes the Bar Exam clips on social media to draw people into this episode. So I appreciate you so much for joining us. We will be back next week, maybe with another guest, maybe not. We'll have to see what comes out of our DMs. Mike, thank you so much.